This episode is sponsored by Son of Italy. If you grew up around real Italian cooking, like both myself and Gennaro, you know it starts with the pantry. Son of Italy has been doing it right since 1950. Classic ingredients, traditional recipes, and no shortcuts. Family owned and proudly part of the Saval Foodservice family. Son of Italy, bringing people together one meal at a time. Welcome to Dine Dish, the podcast where hospitality meets real talk. I'm your host, Michelle DeMeo, Restaurant Diva, serving up the stories, strategies, and behind-the-scenes truths of the restaurant business. All right, well, welcome back for another episode of Dine and Dish. And today's episode, we are going to talk food. Food. Since we are foodies and we're restaurant people, and I'm bringing in the best of the best and the top of the top. And Brian Saval is on the phone with me today, and we're going to talk about food and quality and sourcing and profitability and you name it in today's restaurant world. And let me get him on the phone. We've been having so many different technical issues. So it's a good thing, Brian, we're not techie people and we're food people. But welcome to Dine and Dish. Are you on the line?
Thanks, Michelle, and I appreciate being on. I'll tell you what, I've done a lot of media all around things that you've been doing over the past 6 months, so I'm happy to be on.
Yeah, I was going to say, Brian, we've done reality TV. Now we're doing podcasts. I mean, I'm getting you into the world of reality TV and PR. How about that?
Yeah, you sure are.
So before we get started, if you could kind of open up the show and let the listeners know a little bit about you and what you bring to the table and this legacy that you're running, and we're so happy to be a partner with you and use your company and distribution with all of our stores. So if you could just kind of lead into the show with that, that would be amazing.
Sure, yeah. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about the company. So we're a 94-year-old company, and our heritage is deli manufacturing. So we started right near, I don't know if you know where Corned Beef Row is in Baltimore, Maryland. It's right where Lenny's used to be, where Atman's currently is, and Weiss's, which is right on Central and Lombard. And my great grandfather would just sell corned beef, pastrami, and roast beef to all the local delis there. And then we've evolved over the time, started sourcing, selling other items to restaurants. And about 30 years ago, we separated our distribution from our manufacturing and formed two companies: Deli Brands of America, which is a manufacturer of just deli meats, fully cooked proteins like meatloaf, pot roast, pork roast, cooked short rib, and many other custom protein solutions that we produce for our customers. And then our distribution company is called Saval Foodservice, which many people know from our trucks
Mm-hmm.
that are all over the DMV. And we're a broadline distributor, so we sell anything that a restaurant would use. And we're the largest independent broadliner in the area, and we serve some of the best restaurants, all over the DMV, and we're happy to have you as a customer.
Yeah.
And
And we're bringing on more. We're bringing on more.
yeah, that's
Well,
right, that's right.
well, when you said 94 years in the running, we knew it wasn't you because obviously
I'm not that old.
exactly. Um, so that's such a cool story to bring such history into a business, and now running that and taking over the reins and keeping that legacy going. How cool is that?
It is cool, and I got I have two little girls now, and I hope to keep it going and hopefully pass it on to them one day.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I say that all the time with Vivi. I'm like, "Do you think one day you'll run the business?" It didn't work with Alana. Alana was like, "Hell no." Didn't work with Maury. Now with her being at the Naval Academy and going military, she's definitely not getting into the restaurant world.
Uh-huh.
So maybe with Vivi, they'll take over she'll take over the reins and, be the next restaurateur in the family. But let's kind of talk a little bit about what it means to honor tradition. So many restaurateurs and so many businesses today, they just follow so many modern techniques, and you're bringing such I guess, value, and it's about relationships. I mean, that's one of the things that I truly loved about Savile is, I'm such a relationship person. So it's like, you do business with people you feel comfortable with and building relationships and not just, being a number. There's so many food distributions and purveyors out there where you just become, a number. It's transactional. So how has that really, I guess, guided or led your company through the years, and building these relationships?
We're betting on that it's going to continue to be a relational business, even as technology advances and AI advances. But our values stay the same. It's still service, integrity, and then the relationships that we build with not just our customers but also our suppliers. But then it's evolving and adding in innovation over time and providing other resources and education to our customers that has helped us continue to grow and get to the next level.
Yeah, yeah, which is so cool. I mean, that's one thing that with all of our stores, including Squisito, we've really stayed true to the brand. Every show that I've been doing this almost a year now, every show COVID's come, we've talked COVID, we've talked AI, it keeps coming up because it just changed our business. It changed everything, how we do business. It brought on third party. I mean, so many things have changed since COVID. And I'm assuming that's totally changed your business. And let's jump right into the state of food supply today because things have changed so much. So, how have you seen food sourcing and volatility and pricing pressure and all these things change your business? I mean, I know how it's changed mine from the operator perspective, but how has it changed the distribution side for you to be able to service your customers?
Well, I think you use the word volatility. I think volatility is the new normal. So one great thing that has come out of COVID, we've seen a lot of operators. They've they were able to become creative and try new things and understand that something that they're expecting tomorrow may not be there. So we we've seen a lot of creativity on that side, but volatility is something we've always dealt with to a degree, but with COVID, we really had to shift and find new sourcing, and it hasn't just been COVID. We have new things like the avian flu, and we had our egg suppliers just this week not be able to produce any eggs for a 2 week period. We had our duck supplier that went out of the business for about a year and a half. But we've really had to shift and find a new source of products, and we've changed a lot since COVID. When COVID occurred, as I'm sure you've dealt with, you lost most of your business overnight.
Yeah.
So we had to adapt and
And
find new
rebuild,
sources
right? Rebuild
and
everything.
rebuild. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And we when in March, was it 16th, 2020, we kept all of our salespeople on after COVID, and what we started doing, we started making food boxes and just started giving them away and doing food drives and feeding restaurant employees who were out of work.
Hmm.
And what that did was it helped us gain relationships with a lot of our customers that are still there today, and it put us in the primary position um, in a lot of our customers, and allowed them to trust us to source new products and it helped us evolve.
Yeah, you know what? We did the same thing. I mean, we fed all the hospitals, the front line. I mean, we did the same thing and we kept all of our employees. I mean, we didn't lay anybody off. I mean, even our full service with Carpaccio, they continue to run out of the to go side. I mean, we did everything we could to keep those relationships and keep as many people on as we could. And, that's really helped sustain our business as well, especially with Squisito. I mean, we say it all the time. Squisito is such a bulletproof concept
Mhm.
because when the economy drops, there's issues with food supply. I mean, it's just everybody loves Italian food, comfort food.
Yep.
I mean, it's just you can feed everybody, whether you're a
Mhm.
child, whether you're a grandmom, whether you're a team, a politician, doesn't matter. Everybody loves pizza and pasta. It's just such a good, warm comfort food. So same thing. I mean, we've had the same results, and it's helped us to grow as well. So
Yeah, I mean, I think the community saw what you did, right? And you got a lot of goodwill out of that. And I'm sure that wasn't your intention. You were looking to, keep your employees on and do the right thing and help the community. And it sometimes it pays back, right?
yeah, of course. Well, we're
Mm.
definitely a community driven concept for sure. And both Gennaro and myself, we're always out there. We've learned to say yes. And I think you and I, we've talked about this
Uh-huh.
before that, when people come to you, it's yes, absolutely. How can we help you? How can we get involved? And so, absolutely. And that's one of the drivers when we met and we were talking about building this relationship and switching over from our other company. That was one of the motivators for me. I loved the fact that you were so community focused. You're local. I mean, how many restaurants can say they could pick up the phone and call the president of your food purveyor? I mean, you can't do that with all these big companies out there, and that's a lot of value. That brings value. It brings integrity. It brings comfort, and so we love it. So thank you for that. So talk a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of the biggest shift in food servicing right now. I mean, are you seeing like which way is it going? What's the biggest shift you're seeing in just your sourcing overall?
I would say the biggest shift is, even before COVID, we saw a lot of our customers, they have expectations that they could get the same product out throughout the year, right?
Right.
And along with that, they want to differentiate themselves. They want to be able to have, new items that, you may not be able to source locally. So we've got a great purchasing team that focuses on finding product all over the world, and you hear people talk about the globalization of the American palate. That's real, and you got to have, different products, different unique offerings that the restaurants need. And
Yeah.
we have such a diverse, group of restaurant customers, that it's not steak and potatoes anymore. It's a lot of unique, Asian influences and really from, that's what the new generation is looking for as well as they go out and dine.
Oh, yeah, especially with all the allergies. I mean, we just did a show recently with all the allergies and the different shifts of what's going on in terms of younger people, how they're eating with vegan options. I
Mhm.
mean, there's so many different farm to table. So you have to have
Yeah.
the ability to source and be creative. I mean, in a couple minutes we'll talk about, you know, getting creative with menu and inspirational type menus. So I definitely agree. Sourcing's huge. I mean, we talk about it all the time, especially in the Italian segment. It's whether you're sourcing tomatoes, that could make or break your dishes. I mean, one of the things we used to talk all the time, like we'll get into produce. I My biggest pet peeve is when you bring tomatoes and they're not fresh and they're not ripe, and you're putting these tomatoes onto a salad or caprese salad,
Mhm.
fresh mozzarella that we fly in from Italy, and then the tomatoes fall flat. They have horrible taste,
Yeah.
or they're rotten or they're sour. And I mean, that was my biggest pet peeve. We were getting them and they were already coming in not fresh, and then you have the issues with whatever the rains or too much rain, and then you have issues with eggplant, and it just drives the whole commodity of pricing. And then if you don't have proper buying power, then it drives prices up for restaurateurs. And then what do? You can't just keep changing your menus and increasing prices. So buying power is in sourcing is just so important for the end user.
Yeah, it is important. And you're right. There's always either or too much rain or too little rain that's going to drive
It's true, right?
yeah. Yeah, and it's tough to manage.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many variables that make it hard, and you get squeezed, and it's not just food costs. You could speak to it more than anybody. It's labor
Yeah.
and the amplification of social media makes you have to be perfect always, right? So it's a tough business.
Well, that's interesting that, from social media, would you say that affects your business as much as it affects, like, the restaurateurs? Because, social media is obviously everybody today thinks they're a critic and they think they can go on Yelp and
Yeah.
they're chefs and they can review everybody. Does it affect you as much as it affects a restaurateur?
Not on the distribution side.
Yeah.
On the, we're a manufacturer. We also have a line of retail Italian products. And there we're trying to touch the end user. So their social media is pretty important and to market our products. On the distribution side, we're more B2B, and
Yeah.
we don't focus too much on the social media aspect of it.
Yeah. So you touched a little bit, you mentioned food cost. What do you think is the biggest, I guess, where the misunderstandings happen? What is mostly misunderstood about today's food costs?
Well, I would say oftentimes, especially new operators, when they look at their invoice price,
Hmm.
they assume that is their food cost, and they don't look at the yields and the waste, the labor that it may take to break something down. So we try to educate, most of our salespeople. They're either chefs or former operators,
Hmm.
so they come from that world, and they're able to articulate, why something makes more sense to buy, even though the it may cost a little bit more. And we spend a lot of time on that because it's so crucial that your menu pricing is correct, right? Otherwise, you're not going to be able to make money. So we talk a lot about that, and there is a big misconception there that, okay, if this costs $4 per pound, and I'm putting out 8 ounces, then it's $2. Well, it's only $2 if it's 100% usable, right? So we always try to educate our customers whenever we can on anything along those lines.
Yeah. Uh, Food cost is an interesting one because, you have to know the weights, you have to know the packs. Everything comes a different
Mhm.
way. It could be cans, it could be pounds. I mean, you need to know one, how it comes into the restaurant, then you have to know what the weight you're using and how you break it down in terms of how many pounds, how many ounces, and then what the cost is. And it's such a science. I mean, I know there's so many programs out there that restaurateurs use nowadays where they can put the information in and it calculates what that food cost would be for the item on the menu. But I think that's really one of the look, there's only two things you can control in the restaurant, right? It's your payroll and it's your food cost. So if you really
Mhm.
don't know what your food cost is per item, I mean, you could really do yourself a disservice, especially on the bottom line.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's crucial.
So,
And manufacturers don't make it easy because, yeah, everyone has, yeah, you're right, different pack sizes and different yields. We'll buy, two different top rounds from two different packers,
mhm.
and we have a cut shop, and it's so important, that we do yield tests every single day and compare that so that we know what our true costs are when we're cutting for our customers. So it really is critical for the operator to understand that.
So I have to tell you, when we filmed the reality show, one of the coolest things that we did, you mentioned your cut room. And I want to jump right in and talk about your meats because that experience was over the top. It was crazy. I mean, you talk about yield and waste, but the machinery and the precise processes that you have from taking the quality of meats. And I want you to talk about that in just a minute of, why you partnered with the company that you do. And you can talk about that in a minute. But the quality and how you take the weights and the packaging, it was just so impressive and so much fun. Like I couldn't wait. The whole show you were giving me tours and we were walking through, and first off I was freezing and half the rooms I didn't go into, but we got into the meat cutting room and I was looking forward to that. I couldn't wait. I mean, I actually did pretty good, in terms of weights, but um it was so interesting to see how the whole process works, even from your side, from a distribution packaging side of making sure that even the end cuts, when they cut them off, they're put into, you know, a different product. So there's not a lot of waste to help with the food cost. So can you talk about your whole meat cutting process and the quality and the partnership and how you go about that, because I thought that was the highlight of the whole experience and tour that we did with you.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that. It's definitely a lot more interesting than just looking at boxes in a warehouse.
And
And
freezing
I
your
will
tush
say,
off looking at produce.
that's yep, that's true. And I will say I was very impressed. You cut a perfect 8-ounce steak. That was very impressive. That's harder than it looks.
Yeah. Well, I have enough day jobs, so I'm not coming to cut meat for you. Between
Darn.
podcasts, restaurants, doing this, taxes, this. No, can't cut meat either, but it was fun.
Well, if you change your mind, please let me know.
Great. I know I always have a job being a butcher.
It's a tough job, and what we so we talk about yields, right? And making sure you know what your true cost is. That was part of the reason why 20 years ago, we bought a cut steak operation called Off Steaks,
Mhm.
and only about 3 years ago, we started a new company called 1932 Specialty Produce and Meat, where we have a new facility about a mile away from our current distribution center, where we only focus on cut steaks and produce.
Mhm.
And we have a fleet of smaller non-CDL trucks that offer more frequent deliveries to our broadline customers. But also we have some, only produce and meat customers that utilize the services. But with the cut shop, it's hard if you're buying, a full tenderloin. Most restaurants don't realize that the yield for center cut tenderloin is only about 34%.
Mhm.
So what are you doing with the
With the
rest
rest of
of
it,
that
right?
loin,
Yeah.
right? And some operators, they'll use it all. They've got the tenderloin tips that they have an entree for. They have, they use the head steaks for their salads. They have the trim that they grind for burgers, but most don't. And most also don't, account for the blood loss. So there's a lot that really goes into it. We sell, we utilize the entire piece. We utilize the trim, the byproducts, and obviously the center cuts that go to many of our customers.
Mhm.
But also the what we do is we have, if somebody orders a 6 ounce, they're going to get a 6 ounce fillet. Where it's if you don't have somebody that's cutting it every day or that's as good as you, they're oftentimes they may cut a 7 ounce or an 8 ounce and give away 2 free ounces, or cut a 4 ounce and have some inconsistency in your offerings. So the good thing is if our meat cutter, if they cut a 7 ounce, it goes in the 7 ounce pile and it goes to a customer that orders 7 ounce. But everything we do is custom cut for the customer. So when we get an order, they can order 12, 14 ounce ribeyes or just three 11 ounce strips. So they don't need to, use the whole loin. They could buy
Right.
exactly what they need for their dinner service. So there's not as much waste, and they know exactly the cost of that menu item.
Yeah. So let's talk margin management for a minute. So you're bringing up the point of they're placing the order for meat cuts already done. So, and I saw the machine, it was super cool where they put
Mhm.
the cut piece of meat in and it saran wraps it and it was pretty cool. But what from a cost perspective, because we do both ways. We do for fast casual, we buy things, of course, already pre-cut, but for full service, we bought full loins. Um, because then you have to look at, okay, yes, you're right. Labor goes into it and there's other costs. What's more cost effective? Is it better to buy the full piece of meat and knowing that you have an amazing chef that knows how to menu engineer to use the entire piece? Or is it more cost effective to pay a little bit more? Because obviously the pre cut and pre packaged is more per pound, correct? So, what do you think is
Correct. Yeah.
from a cost management perspective, which is better for the end user?
So we sell both. You could buy the whole subprimals, you could buy it cut, and it really depends on the user. If you truly have and it's not even a chef, it's if you have a butcher, somebody that is always responsible for maximizing the yield of that subprimal, and they really know what they're doing, um, then it may make sense. But most of the time, you're not selling by the pound, and it's very difficult to cut to that exact spec. In addition, there's a lot of equipment that restaurants don't have.
Mhm.
So we have, for example, if you're buying tenderloins, you're hand cutting off the silver skin, and it's very easy to get an extra ounce of really good, center cut meat on that silver skin, where we have a skinner that takes just the silver skin off. And then we also have, other equipment that will optimize the piece, where we have it's called a Morel iCut 130. And for bulk orders, what we can do is we take the piece, and it'll take a picture of it, and it'll cut to whatever spec. So if we're putting a strip in, a full strip loin, it'll cut all 8-ounce center cuts, and then if we want 6-ounce vein ends, it'll cut that. And it's almost perfect, and we offer both. So if somebody wants something hand cut, and some a particular spec that they're looking for, we could do that. And then if somebody needs, I need 200 fillets, we normally will put that through that machine.
Yeah. How do you
So it depends on the operator, basically.
Yeah. So, operator, how do you help the chef and the owners really see value besides per pound? Because today everybody's all about the bottom line. I deal with it with franchisees. We deal with it with full service. You deal with it with chefs. They're looking for cost. Everybody's all about the bottom line. So, how do you help chefs and owners see value in quality over price per pound or quality over the end price?
Right. So, quality, can be talked about a couple different ways. The first is yield, right? It is it what kind of yield are you getting with a particular cut? With and it could be something further processed, like pot roast, um, and that's always really important to do a yield test, right? And our chefs and our culinary advisors, they'll help do yield tests, and whether that's on just a jar of mayo, or a jar of peppers, we do a lot of that internally,
Mhm.
and then we try to inform the customers of, here, this may look, this can of tomatoes, that may look like a better price because of the invoice price,
Yeah.
but when you do a true yield test, you'll see you'll get a lot more out of this can. So we break that down, and we do a lot of that every day. That's what we're working on in our kitchens, to make sure that we're giving the operators the best yield. And then from a quality standpoint, we kind of pride ourselves on having the highest quality products, and we sell to some of the best restaurants in the country, and we partner with just some amazing suppliers, like Meat by Lynn's, that I think
Mhm.
you're referring
That's
to
who Yeah, we
earlier.
used it at Tuscan Prime. I mean, great quality products, yep.
Right. So I was out to in Oklahoma, to their ranch about a month and a half ago, and it's amazing, the owner, Fred Lynn's, how energetic he is about breeding the best steers that he possibly can. And it's all about genetics, and they really, some of these suppliers, the owners, they really care about quality, and that's been their bread and butter. And another example is Bell and Evans chicken, which is air chilled, the finest quality chicken that you get out of Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
So there's all kinds of there's a lot of really great quality suppliers out there, and that's what we try to bring to market when we
Yeah.
and show to our customers as we're out there.
It's funny you bring up chicken, with doing VV's Chicken and Mac. I mean, chicken's our main focus right now, obviously, until we reopen our new full service in Jersey. But boy, the market just fluctuates so much with chicken. You don't realize it. You look at chicken wings and you look at chicken breast, and they can jump in terms of dollars and dollars per pound. It's crazy. You could get a case for one price, and then Super Bowl comes and there's a huge need, or there's a bird flu, or there's an epidemic. I mean, there's so many things that affect it, and then they double. I mean, it's crazy. I never
It's
thought
crazy.
chicken would
Yeah.
be such a big commodity. You know, you think some fancy vegetables and high-end meats, it's chicken. It's crazy.
Yeah. 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 It's amazing the impact it has on our, case average, like
Yeah.
our the dollars per case. It's, when chicken wings go crazy, we sell a lot of chicken wings, and it has a big impact on the top line. But it's horrible for an operator that's, yeah, focusing on chicken, and that's their staple item,
Yeah,
because you'll see
for sure.
prices double sometimes. I mean, it's just
It's
it's tough.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that leads right into, what can an operator do to protect their margins without the guest actually noticing? You know, so like what happens if this chicken flu breaks out and chicken prices double, or you can't get them? And what's the smart substitution? What do you do? You know, at that point, now you're the purveyor, you're the distributor. I'm going to come to you and say, "Brian, help. What do we do?" What's your
Right. Right.
suggestion that to protect the margin so the stores stay open, but the guests don't really notice that there's a big problem?
Yeah. So my first suggestion would be, we have an amazing podcast. We are One of our lead buyers puts out every single week. It's called Market Trends with Tracy, and it's a comprehensive market report that goes over the commodity market, and it'll forecast what we expect, down the pipeline, with chicken, with beef, pork, with oils and grains, and he'll tell you, this is what you should menu this week. Oftentimes he's saying pork, because pork is always a great menu item that's very
Mhm,
profitable for many customers.
mhm.
Um, but being in tune with the market and being communicative um, with your supplier is really important. And there's only so much we can do on some commodities, like beef and chicken. I can't contract that out for 3 months. It's
Yeah,
based off of the Ernberry market, and it fluctuates week to week. So you can't really get ahead of it, unless you've got a big freezer and you wanna, freeze, a couple pallets of chicken or beef. But
yeah. Well,
it's,
that doesn't work with concepts that are all fresh and they don't they
it
don't
really
have
doesn't.
freezers, or they don't do
Yeah.
anything frozen?
It also makes it really difficult for concepts that, like Vivi's, that just has, chicken, right?
Right.
That's your staple. So it's hard to be flexible there. But the biggest thing is, yeah, get with your supplier, and make sure that they know, hey, this is my staple item. What's coming down the pipeline? How can you try to protect, from week to week? But we're kind of all in the same boat when we see these large fluctuations in the market,
Yeah.
and especially on fresh product.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you do a podcast on trends. So let's talk a minute about the trends. Are there any trends that you're watching really closely right now that, whether it's protein or produce? I mean, what's the hot watch list right now?
The hot watch list for us is, it's always beef. We're one of the largest, beef buyers on the East Coast, with our manufacturing entity and Saval in 1932. And the beef is at just an all-time high, and it's tough. Normally, we see the markets ebb and flow, and last year all we saw was just the market continue to spike higher and higher and higher, and you're kind of just chasing your tail. And we have some big customers that, you know like Safeway and other big retailers, that were priced off of last month's market. So it's hard when the market continues to rise, and it's hard to continue to profit. But what's been interesting is, even as the beef market has spiked, the demand is still there. People still are out buying beef, and it's until that that stops, it's gonna be hard because supply is tight.
Yeah.
The U.S. herd is at, and I think all-time low since 1950, and it takes about 3 years to rebuild a herd,
Right.
and
I
we're
was
in
gonna say
year
that's the
year one.
hardest bit.
We're in year two. Yeah,
Can you imagine, you're the distributor, I'm the restaurateur, but you have to buy the beef somewhere. I mean, can you imagine the stress on these farmers that, again, bird flu or, the cattle get sick. I mean, you can't just grow a cow to cut the meat that you need to sell to the distributor. I mean, it's such a crazy trend. I mean, there's so many things that you really have to look at, from the buying to the distribution to the end user at the restaurant, where they're trying to do menu sustainability and profitability, right? It's crazy.
absolutely. I mean, there are so many variables that come into to effect that impact the beef market, right?
Yeah.
It's the grain costs, and when there's other geopolitical issues that can cause pricing on grain to rise, whether that's the war with Ukraine and Russia, or other issues throughout the world that have an impact on the local farm. And it gets expensive to raise a cow.
Yeah.
So, it's when it doesn't make sense for the farmer, the supply is gonna tighten.
Yeah. So, what food trends are real, and which one do you think are really just overhyped and people, you know, make a big deal out of it for nothing? I mean, what are real food trends that we're watching right now?
Yeah. I don't wanna offend anybody by, saying that a trend isn't real, because, but we see it all the time, and we have such a high SKU count because of all these new trends and
Yeah. Well,
allergies.
and you got to remember,
Um,
Brian, everything's TikTok. TikTok,
you're right, you're right.
Instagram. If they see something on Instagram, it's like, oh, let's jump on that food trend. I mean, it's
Yeah,
crazy, right? TikTok, like,
yeah.
I think just fuels the fire to everything. That's like, it's crazy.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the big trend that has been coming our way for years is getting back to the local sourcing. So we've seen a lot of that, and we've seen that the consumers, they do care about that, right? They wanna see where their product is coming from. So but it's hard. You can only do it so much, and again, as these new restaurants and operators, they want new products. You need to you know import products from other countries, and there's a lot of specialty products that just aren't produced locally.
Right.
But yeah, labeling, knowing who the supplier is, what farm it's coming from, that's still relevant, and I think that'll always stay, especially as consumers, become more educated, and also as some of these farms, they learn the power of social media, and they learn how to market themselves, which is really something that many of them, generations earlier never did. So you are starting to see a lot more of that.
Yeah. Talking about AI, I mean, we're talking a little bit about social media and tech. I mean, look, you and I couldn't even get on our podcast because we're technically challenged. But,
Yeah.
talk about AI. I mean, is that playing into the food distribution business at all? And do you foresee that changing how you do business? Because, I mean, everything today is, we were talking last week about, food is medicine. I had a guest on, and we were talking about everybody using ChatGPT like they're doctors. Oh, I have this symptom. What is this problem? And how do I prescribe this for myself? I mean, how do you see that falling into the distribution side of your business?
No, I think AI is just a fad, and it's going to go away.
You do, really?
I'm
I think
kidding.
you're the
No,
first
no.
person to say that. How,
Yeah, and
everybody by
and
saying,
I hope I'm the last, because yeah, if you are not integrating AI into your business, you're making a mistake. I mean, it's transforming every department. Everything from, you imagine we're not that far from you not having to place an order from just your POS and inventory management system is gonna be able to forecast, and then it's gonna be able to integrate right into our system and place an order and communicate. Um, and then the salesperson's job is gonna change, right? Our salespeople are,
Well, that was my next question. Is that going to affect job market and employment? Because I mean, when we met, that was one of the drivers for me to make it easier for our fast casual to be able to have a program in place. The food comes into your restaurant, the restaurant accepts the food into a program, it communicates with your POS system so it knows what you sold because you put your recipe in and you put what obviously it keeps track of the dishes and your menu items. And then it forecasts, okay, great, this is what I need to order. And it creates and generates an order guide for you. And the manager just has to do submit, and then the order goes in. And you don't need a salesperson in the middle to say, do you need this? Do you need that? I mean, I think it's going to change the way a lot of restaurants run and distribution processes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, restaurants will be able to use it for forecasting,
Right.
demand planning. You'll reduce waste, right?
You hope.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like you would imagine. I mean, it's already there's already some machine learning out there that we're using, but we're really looking, yeah, to integrate it in many different departments, and it's yeah, it's certainly going to change the way we do things. As far as salespeople, we're investing heavily in getting, the best salespeople, getting more salespeople, because that's not what we want our salespeople to be doing anyway. It's and they're territory managers, for us.
Right.
Um, but we want them to be consultants, right? That's what that's what we hire for, is how can they help the operator? How can they make sure that their operators are successful and making enough margin on items, and how are we introducing new items to them? As far as, order taking, we're kind of already, you know, most of our customers are ordering online anyway.
Yeah, well, it
Uh,
goes back to what you said in the beginning. It's about education. It's
mhm.
having your territory managers out there educating the chefs and the restaurateurs and the business operators to be smarter about how they order, how they menu, how they design their menus, just in general, and educate them about the products you have. So, it goes back to education and communication, right? It's not just about the bottom line and numbers. It's about quality and education.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. So, what advice do you have for operators navigating 2026 from a distribution standpoint? I mean, talk a little bit about strategic partnerships, vendor management, rebates. I mean, what's your advice for putting all that together and planning ahead to be successful? I mean, this is the time to do it. It's the beginning of 2026.
Yeah, I would say, continue to pay close attention to the markets. Talk and communicate to your distributor, and for the most part, there are deals out there. When we talk about, if you've when a customer is looking for, price break on particular items, what we always try to get them to do is, consolidate. If you have multiple units, and you do a really good job with this, make sure they're all buying the same French fry. Make
Mhm.
sure they're all buying, the
Sure.
the same, can of tomatoes, and what that allows us to do, it allows us to go back to the suppliers and negotiate. Hey, Squisitos, they they they're good for, 25 cases of a particular item, and they'll be able to offer a better deal. Because that's what suppliers do. Suppliers want to touch the end operator. So anytime, that's available or allowed, they should always be looking to do that. But biggest thing is communicate, forecast with your distributors, and educate yourself on the market so that you are ahead of it. And if you can be flexible, you're getting the right items on the menu.
Yeah. Well, our time is running. Every show I do, we always say the time goes so fast, 40 minutes flies by, and you can talk
It
about
does,
so
yeah.
many different things because all these topics are so interesting and it's so valuable for the listener, especially being in the restaurant business. I mean, anything that you could do to gain education and knowledge to be more successful, obviously, is so valuable. But before we go, we got to do some lightning, fun, quick answers to see what you think. Quality or price?
Uh, Quality that protects price.
Oh, I like that. Quality protects price. Perfect. Local or global as it relates to sourcing?
That's the thing, it's a balance, right? Local, we want always want local, but global is necessary.
Yeah. Seasonal menus or your consistent favorites?
Seasonal.
Yeah, I like seasonal too. It allows it goes back to buying power. It gives you quality. You can buy local. I guess it just answered all of our first three questions.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, well, here's a big one because you have both protein or produce.
Protein. I'm a meat guy.
Well, let me tell you something. After visiting your whole conglomerate, and I'm definitely, I mean, I don't eat meat as much, but I am definitely, especially your freezing produce refrigerators. I'm definitely leaning towards them. I too. All right,
Yeah.
relationships or transactions,
Always relationships. They win every time.
and your biggest food cost misconception.
I guess what I said earlier about, food costs, doesn't necessarily equal invoice price, right? So I would say that's the biggest misconception.
Yeah. Well, for everybody listening, DMs are open, of course. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple or any of your streaming channels, we have so much great information and so many amazing future shows coming up. And we always love to hear from you. We love suggestions on topics. I have so many amazing guests, and we have great shows in the future. You can reach us through restaurantdiva.com. Obviously, through Instagram, you can DM us. And Brian, for everybody listening, where can they find information on your company and how to get a hold of you for restaurateurs out there looking to change purveyors?
Sure, you get our website, savalfoods.com.
And before we leave, if you can just give us one piece of advice when it comes to food sourcing and partnerships, and what do you want the listeners to take away from this whole food buying craziness?
I would say treat your distributor as a partner and bring them in and let them learn your business so that they can help you more.
Yeah. So I have to say, we were with a company for my God, almost 30 years. I can't even believe that Janar's been doing this almost 30 years. I
Mhm.
don't feel that old. Where did it come? Where did the time go? Um, but changing after 30 years to find the right partner for us. I mean, we imagine this, you're buying from the same company for 30 years and they choose transaction over relationship. It became a number, it became about bottom line for them, and they lost such a huge account. And now we're getting ready to transfer more over to your company. And the right food partner doesn't just deliver ingredients. They really deliver help and protect your margins and help elevate menus and really build long-term success. So, you know, um, it's been great. I mean, we've only worked together for what, a year now, and we've done,
Mhm.
like you said, we started the show by saying we've done so much together. I mean, you supported our reality show, which, believe it or not, is airing in the next um, month or so. We just got the first few
Oh, exciting.
episodes, which is so cool. And I can't wait for you to see it. You're going to love it. Because we did a whole episode around your whole company. So it's super cool. But it's been such a great partnership. So I want to thank you for that. And thank you so much for being my guest. It's been a great show, so much amazing information. And hopefully we can have you back in the future to talk more about food and quality and relationships.
Well, it means the world, and we appreciate the partnership. And thank you for having me on the show.
And thank you so much. And everybody, that is another episode of Dine and Dish. And we will talk to you soon. Thanks, Brian, for everything.
Thanks, Michelle.
Uh-huh.
See ya.
Bye.
Instacart understands that not all bananas are created equal. Some people want them green, some want them ripe, some want them ready right now. With Instacart's Preference Picker now available at most retailers, you can choose how you like certain items like banana ripeness, deli thickness, even avocados, before your shopper even starts. So instead of crossing your fingers and hoping for the best, you get groceries picked the way you would pick them. It's a small thing, but it makes a big difference. Download the app and get bananas just how you like with Instacart.
I'm Kiana, and I leveled up my business with Shopify. Once I figured out that Shopify was a thing, I never turned back. I can create a site with my eyes closed. Shopify thinks ahead of us, and it thinks about the customer more than anything. Every day I'm thinking about some other new business, but Shopify is doing it to me because it's so easy to use. It's like I can't stop. I'm addicted.
Start your free trial at shopify.com